We're all pretty familiar with the concept of a habit. An action repeated over and over will eventually become habitual, whether that's biting your nails when you're nervous or going out for a drink every Friday night. Ever wonder exactly how this process takes place? In our brains is something called the basal ganglia, which is responsible for the process of habit building. Within the basal ganglia is a reward system, which provides motivation to act a certain way and create a habit or routine. Think of the way you would train a pet. When a dog does a trick, you reward it with a treat. This makes the dog want to do the trick again for another treat in the future. The reward system of our brains works very similarly. This circuitry is all processed in a part of the basal ganglia known as the striatum and neocortex. It works with a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine to our brain is like the treat to the dog. When dopamine is released in our brains, a sense of euphoria occurs. We feel pretty good after a dopamine release. But just like everything else, too much dopamine is unhealthy. Things like proper exercise, providing acts of service, or doing a good job at work all provide healthy levels of dopamine. However, unhealthy habits such as gossiping, lying, holding resentment, smoking, overworking, or viewing pornographic material create an excess amount of dopamine. This causes a physiological imbalance. When our brains are chemically balanced with an appropriate amount of dopamine, we feel great. This is what brings feelings of true peace and happiness. On the other hand, when we're caught up in bad habits, chemical imbalances occur that suppresses the brain's biochemical ability to actually feel happy. Instead, we feel emotions such as sadness, depression, and anxiety. The key question to ask is, why would someone decide to keep habits that create negative feelings? The answer is that poor behavior, such as thinking negatively about others or even our own selves, causes the body to create high levels of hormones and other chemicals. This can provide a brief surge of pleasure. Many negative actions give us some kind of brief chemical reward, but these behaviors do far more harm than good, both psychologically and physically. Although there is a brief moment of euphoria, the excess levels of biochemicals found in the bloodstream damage the body. With negative behavior, the bottom line is the reward is not worth it. We already get the gist of what's good for us and what isn't, and we all naturally want to be healthy. When we live healthy lifestyles, we feel good about it. For example, every time we finish an exercise routine, serotonin and other neurotransmitters create a feeling of satisfaction, leaving us with a sense of physical enjoyment. So why do so many of us quit healthy habits after a few weeks? Most of us already understand, at least at an intellectual level, the benefits and rewards we can gain from positive habits. Most of us know how to start changing our lifestyles. But why is it so hard for us to make positive, permanent changes? At times, we may be tempted to say that we don't have the willpower to change, or we may blame our environment. Using these as excuses, however, is questioning the brain's natural capability. The truth is that when we don't feel like we can change, we shift our reasoning to create habits that provide perceived levels of satisfaction to the mind, while bringing little to no health benefits. Something similar happened to a man named James. James is in his 40s and was absolutely certain that playing basketball was not for him. However, he really enjoyed the sport and would watch games often. How is it that he could enjoy watching the game but dislike playing it so much? When James was a young man, he tried playing basketball a number of times, but due to a bit of clumsiness, he did not do well. He began to compare himself with other more experienced and developed players. This left him feeling frustrated and full of stress, leaving him with a lack of confidence and no desire to improve. James eventually quit basketball, considering it a waste of time, and replaced his desire to play with drinking beer and an idle lifestyle. Then James met phytotherapy, and together we did an experiment. James started using our stress and anxiety protocol and began to go and play basketball with some acquaintances. James then experienced something that surprised even him. He actually was enjoying playing. Even several months after this experiment, James continued to play every week. Just like James, we have many arguments in our minds that keep us from pursuing good habits. I can't do it. This is just the way I am. It's too hard. It's not important. And a list of others. However, in the end, these arguments and excuses are nothing more than a mask that keeps us from showing our true selves. Just like James, we often turn to bad habits to relieve our stress and frustration. Bad habits, however, are not the answer to relieving our stress. Even though they present a temporary dopamine high, a crash always follows. This leads to depression, lack of self-respect, and more stress, causing us to get stuck in a vicious cycle of habits and addictions. But we are not alone in our quest to change. Our minds are divinely built to heal themselves. When we cause injury to the brain through bad habits, it will begin to seek a solution. Oftentimes, these solutions will be little things like reaching out to others and learning to be selfless. We are not destined to fail. You, me, and everyone have goodness and light inside of us. Once we understand that and act on the impressions we receive to heal our minds, we'll be able to change our lifestyle. There is proof throughout the world that we can change, and we can do it, one day at a time.